But we're joined right now by an expert on budgets. He's going to give us his reaction. He directed the Congressional Budget Office from 1983 to 1987. He is Rudy Penner. He is the senior fellow at the Urban Institute. Rudy, thanks so much for joining us. Is there anything that has jumped out at you so far from these budget details?
Well, the most difficult problem we face is the long-run deficit problem. This budget makes some symbolic gestures in order to deal with it. And I suppose symbolic gestures are better than nothing at all, but I would have liked to see more that prepares the American people for the kind of sacrifices they're going to have to make in the future.
Rudy, do you think that the Obama administration took a somewhat conservative route there, as you're telling it, because that's the only thing they can do at this point?
Well, it is true that it's extremely difficult to deal with the really big problems which lie in Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, but we're going to have to do it eventually. We're on an unsustainable path. So it would be good if we could prepare people more for the kinds of things they're going to have to give up in the future.
Now, one thing that's been highlighted, Rudy, as part of this plan is to try to help small businesses grow and to help them try to pay their people better. Knowing detail as you do you think this will work?
Well, that's a really interesting question. There's a lot of debate out there as to what extent the small amount of lending is due to a lack of demand and to what extent it's due to a lack of supply. The president's initiative assumes it's mainly on the supply side. I think it will probably help a little. With regard to having a tax credit for employment, that's more difficult to judge. Obviously, when you do something like that, it's very hard to design it so that you don't pay a lot of money for people who would have been hired anyway.
Getting to a little bit more detail on individual tax rates and family tax rates, I mean, essentially what I seem to be reading is that we go back to the pre-Bush years. Is this the right tack to take now at this point in the economy?
Well, I would much prefer if we looked at the whole tax system and went for a radical reform. We've got the problem of how to deal with the Bush tax cuts. We've got the problem of how to deal with the alternative minimum tax. It's an ideal opportunity to do something more substantial. And like most economists, I'd like to see us get rid of a lot of the special deductions and exemptions in the code so that we could lower rates generally and still raise more revenue.
But we know it's politically not feasible to just tax everybody at 23%, right, and be done with it.
Well, you wouldn't have to do that. You could have a system with two brackets, say 20 and 25%. That could emulate the distribution of the tax burden we have today, and we could raise more revenue in the longer run.
As you mentioned, Rudy, you're an economist. Where do you think we stand now in the economy? Will this tax plan help or hurt? Are you saying it's really too conservative to move the needle in either direction?
It will have a limited effect. Obviously, even rates as high as 39% when you add the Medicare tax and you add state and local taxes, starts to get to a level that it causes a lot of distortions and inefficiencies. But I can't claim that those will be huge in this recovery.
Rudy, we thank you so much for your time and your insight. Rudy Penner, Senior Fellow at the Urban Institute.